Hello, my name is Bob. Welcome to a short stop on pool. My rack of the week video is a little late this week. Sorry about that. I've been knocking myself out, working a lot of extra hours building the pool rack, the Satori flat rack, and building a website and an introduction video, and it's been a novel experience. So check my channel. That's going to be coming up very soon. The rack's going to be for sale this week. For the rack of the week this week, I chose a rack from the 84 ball run that I recently posted. I think it's the second or third rack in that run. Some interesting lessons that oftentimes when you're shooting straight pool, it looks like there's a lot of open balls, but when you look at it, you only have one shot. And that kind of happened a few times in this rack. I really only had one shot to choose from several times. And you need to have faith and just commit to that shot and know that that's how a lot of straight pool racks go, and figure out a way to get through the rack. So let's get into the rack. To start the rack, I have a low break ball with a shallow angle. So I know my cue ball is going to hit this corner ball, and I'd like to hit the center of it. If I draw the cue ball and hit the top of this 9, this corner ball, my cue ball could go up table. If I hit the bottom, it could actually come around and go up table. So I could lose the cue ball. So I'm trying to hit it not with a draw stroke, but just below center. Yeah. You see how the cue ball died? Let's take another look at that break shot. See if I can rewind it to the right spot. Here we go. Watch the balls that leave the rack. I'm going to try and pause it. Okay. Notice that the balls that are leaving the rack are the bottom row, and they're all moving down. And then these 3 balls were on the top of the rack on the opposite side, and they're moving in this direction away. And then this ball was the far corner ball. So this ball has the most energy because I hit this corner ball and all that energy went through the bottom row. The hope is that this corner ball would rebound off this rail, come back, and open up this cluster in the center of the rack area. That's not likely to happen because this ball might have a little bit of spin that's going to take it below rather than back up above the rack, but sometimes that can happen. What you want to make sure that you do is control the cue ball. So by hitting a little bit below center and hitting this corner ball full, that cue ball stayed under control. It went to the rail and it kind of died there. And I know that these balls are moving towards the rail, so very, very often you're going to get a shot on one of those balls. Unfortunately for me, that didn't quite happen this time. Real often, one of these balls, like for example this stripe ball, will be open to this shot and you're in business, or into this pocket and you're in business, and sometimes you'll have an angle to open up the rack area right away. In this case, that didn't happen, and I have a back cut on this maybe that's the 5 ball, but I feel like I'm losing the cue ball, and I'd rather shoot this shot. I'm closer to straight in, this 15 on the side, and I'm just going to bring the cue ball forward. And I know I'm going to have a shot on one of these balls here, and then I'm going to reevaluate. So that's the first example of I didn't have a lot of options. I just had one shot, and one shot's enough. So now I have 2 clusters, the rack area cluster and this at the bottom of the table. So I've really got my work cut out for me. I'm off angle on this 11. If I shoot it in the side, the cue ball runs into 13. I can't control the cue ball. If I try and shoot it in the corner, that's a difficult shot. What am I going to do with the cue ball there? I suppose I could stun it over here and try and get a shot on this ball. What I decide to do is I've got an easy shot on this 8, and I'm going to draw the cue ball back because I'll probably land here and get a favorable angle on one of these stripes to move the cue ball down table. Or, as you can see what happened, I drew it a little bit too far, and I actually have a shot on this pink ball now. Now I could also shoot this ball in the corner because I have less of an angle, so I could try and control the cue ball and do something else. But I'm below the rack now, and that's where the problems are. So I'm going to go ahead and shoot this ball. So once again, I consider this, I only have one option. I have one shot, and that's this ball. And I'm going to draw the cue ball back into this cluster. And I wish I could tell you that I had an insurance ball and I knew exactly what was going to happen. Sometimes you just got to go for it. I probably underhit that a little bit. I would have liked to open those balls more, but again, I have one shot. I can shoot this 2 ball. And I'm not quite straight on the 2 ball. I have a little bit of angle, and I'd like to hit the 9 because that's going to stop the cue ball, and I'll have a shot then on one of those two solids. And that didn't happen. I was hoping to get a shot on one of these two solids back this way. My cue ball did hit the 9, but it didn't hit it very thickly, and so it didn't stop. So for at least the third time, I only have one shot. I just checked my angle on this 9, and it's a little bit too thin. Here's my shot, a carom into the side pocket. Now, as I'm looking at this shot, it looks a lot like, to me, like this 13 is going to come up to this rail and bounce off a little bit. And I'm going to try and send the cue ball here and off the rail, and then I'll have a shot on that 13 ball. That's my plan. And as you can see, that didn't quite work out. I played perfect position for the 13 if it had stopped within the first diamond. So now, can I bank this ball? That's what I'm looking at. I'd have to cross it. I'd have to put a lot of English to get it to go wide enough, and it's just not a viable shot. So once again, I have one shot, and I still have all kinds of trouble, a tied-up rack. My one shot is a thin cut on this 9. And I thought about putting outside English to try and run into these balls, but much better, it's a hard enough shot. You don't want to make it more difficult. So I'm just trying to cut it in and come straight up and straight back down. And I hit it pretty good. The object ball bobbled in that pocket, if you saw. I hit the rail going in. It went in because I didn't have to hit it hard. So it made the pocket a little bit bigger by hitting it easy in that fashion. And now, let me pause this for a second because I want to talk a little bit. I have a straight in, or close to a straight in shot on this orange ball. And what I could do is draw the cue ball back to here so that I have a low angle, an inside angle. And then I can cut the 1 and draw the cue ball into these balls. So that's an option. The bad part about that option is that I have no insurance ball. So I'd be relying on my next shot being one of these balls. And that could happen. Sometimes that's what you're forced to do. But I look at this situation again. I only have one shot, and that's this ball, and I've got to open up this cluster. This is a pretty standard straight pool shot, a natural shot. I want to bounce off the rail, open the cluster, and then this orange ball is my insurance ball. I'm hoping that 5 ball will probably be my next shot. I want you to watch the cue ball when I shoot this 1 ball. I don't want to use a lot of high. I shoot a little bit above center, but not way above center. I'm trying to control the curve. I have to hit this ball hard. And as you know, the harder you hit a ball with a follow stroke or a draw stroke for that matter, the more that the cue ball curves off the rail. So it can be really hard to hit your target. As a trick shot, you could actually make the cue ball curve and go between these balls and not even open that cluster. So it's easier to keep the ball from curving if you don't aim all the way at the top. Let's take a look. Yeah, you see the curve? The curve that I did get held it so that it did hit the rack, the center of the rack. And it didn't quite hit the center because it glanced off the side over here. Now, let me pause it again. I'm always thinking, so what are my options? Obviously, now that these balls are open, I've got a break shot, finally. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 7 balls left, and for the first time I have a viable break shot, and I have something to work with. So I have more than one shot now. I could shoot this ball in the side pocket, or I could shoot the 5. Those are my 2 options. Now, shooting this ball on the side, I actually have an angle that's going to send the cue ball this way. So what am I trying to achieve here? I mean, the best I could probably hope for is to slide above this stripe, shoot the stripe in the corner, and then follow down. I suppose that's an option. I want to still deal with these balls sooner, though. They're kind of open to this corner pocket, but they need to be dealt with in an accurate fashion. And so I'm going to shoot this 5 ball and trying to bring the cue ball straight up here between these balls, because I'm going to have a shot on one of these balls in the corner. If I get a bad angle or something, I'll probably have a shot on this ball, either in the corner pocket or the side pocket. So keeping my options open is what I'm doing here. I do not have a definitive end pattern yet. I can identify that the 3 is my break ball, or the 7 could become the break ball. So it all depends on this shot. Let's see where the cue ball ends up. hit that pretty well, good speed there. I'm not for a second considering shooting this ball, this stripe ball, in the side of the corner. So I have a clear angle at the 14 to just draw the cue ball back without disturbing these balls. Now, at this point, I have an option because I could shoot, oops, let me grab my pencil. I could shoot either of these balls, and I think a lot of players might decide to shoot the 10, send the cue ball to the bottom rail and back up. So once again, options. I'll have a shot on the 7 or the 13. But at this point, you got to start thinking, what is your key ball for the break ball? It depends on which break ball. Now, if I'm going to shoot the 3, this is a great key ball. It's on the right side of the table. And I guess I could shoot the 13. Or I guess any of these 3 remaining balls could possibly be a key ball to get on that 13. What I see, and what I'm saying is there's different patterns to run out from here, but what I see immediately is that I have a safer shot by shooting this 7 ball first, because the cue ball is going to go to the rail and I'm going to have a shot on this 10. And then I can maneuver up here. This stripe ball here is actually, even though it may not look like it, it's actually a pretty good key ball. And the reason is, if I have a stop shot or just roll forward after shooting this ball on the side, I have a really, really high percentage position play to cut this ball in the corner, bounce off the rail, and come out to center table for my break shot. So I don't mind that at all. Even though in a different situation, or if these balls weren't here, there are high percentage ways to make the 10 ball, or the 7 ball for that matter, your key ball. Let's shoot the 7 ball and see what we end up with. Now, the fact that I phrased that statement in that way, I think hints at where my game's at. Because I'm saying to myself, whatever angle I get on this 10 ball, I'm going to be able to make it work. And in a way, that's true. What I'm saying is, if I get this angle, if the cue ball stops here, I can send the cue ball 2 rails and get a shot on this ball in the side pocket. If the cue ball lands on the low side, I could draw the cue ball back to here for a shot on my K2 ball, or possibly I could send the cue ball forward for a shot on the 13 in the corner, this corner, or the side to get on my key ball. That's less desirable. Or if I land straight in, which I did, then I can just draw the cue ball straight back and spin it up, and I'll have a shot on this key ball on the side. Now, the difference between me, I think, and a 200 ball runner is that they would have made the decision on which angle they wanted before they shot the 7. I think that's a really key observation, and it's something that I'm really trying to incorporate more in my game. You want to have a rhythm when you're playing straight pool, but this is the important part right here. Keep your rhythm going, but use your brain. Think. So before you shoot that 7, you say to yourself, I want my cue ball. Here's the shot line to the 10. Before you shoot the 7, you say, I want my cue ball above the shot line in this zone, because that's the highest percentage play to get straight on the 13. The reason why I'm harping on this so much is that, I'm going to shoot this drawback shot, and 8 or 9 times out of 10, I'm going to hit it perfect, and the cue ball is going to stop right here, right where I just pointed with my cue ball. But on this occasion, it didn't stop there. So you don't want to make the success of your runs dependent upon the success of a trick shot. If I had taken just a quarter of a second to decide on what angle I wanted, my cue ball would be here, and I would be straight in, and it would be automatic, just like the top players. So that's what I'm trying to incorporate in my game. So I have an angle, I can't get the shot that I want on this ball as the key ball. So I try to stun it to the rail and straight down. That's really hard to do because your cue ball picks up so much collision-induced English. You saw my cue ball came back in this direction rather than this direction. So now I've got a really difficult shot for my K2. I've got to go back and forth across the table. And the angle is such that I'm going 2 rails, so I want to come off this as a second rail and out to center table for my break shot. And as often happens, as you can see, the cue ball went forward a little bit, and it didn't come as far off the rail as I wanted. So now I have a more difficult shot that I'd hoped for. We've all learned the principle in pool that a position error doesn't make the next shot more difficult. It affects the next 2 to 3 shots, and that's what we just saw. The reason my cue ball's here is because 3 or 4 shots earlier, I didn't make a firm decision when I shot that 7 ball in the corner, and it affected my break shot into the next rack 4 shots later. Maybe that's just where I am in my career right now, but that's a really important lesson for playing straight pool. You want to keep thinking, always be thinking as you're moving through the rack so that you're making good decisions, because they do matter. Let's take a look at this break shot. I have an inside angle. I'm far from the object ball. If the cue ball was here, I would power this shot pretty hard with some high English. But given where the cue ball is, at least 2 times or more farther from the ball than I would prefer, all I'm going to do is cinch this ball. So I'm shooting with low on the cue ball. I'm hoping that the cue ball is going to hit the rack, come back a little bit like this, and stop. I'm not going to hit this hard. This is all about controlling the cue ball and making sure I make the ball. That's really great. The cue ball went to the side rail and bounced off back a little bit. If I hit it harder, it would have traveled farther. But as it is, I have a combination shot, and even though I still have a big cluster in the rack area, that's the way to proceed in the next rack. You don't always have to smash that rack open. And I do get through this rack and end up running 84 balls on this turn. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found that informative and helpful. If you did, please hit the like button and consider subscribing. Check out my book, A Short Stop on Straight Pool. You can find it at shortstoponpool.com. And stay tuned for next week's Rack of the Week.